Barcelona's new heartbeat, Spain's midfield architect, and one of the brightest young talents in world football. This is the story of how a quiet teenager from a small coastal town went from street games and overlooked trials to becoming the heir to Xavi and Iniesta, the journey of a player who refused to be ignored. The Spaniard's early pathway was anything but glamorous. Youth football with UD Tegueste, then CF Juventud Laguna, stepping stone clubs far from the hyper-professionalised academies of mainland giants. The qualities that would define him later were already there: vision, one-touch combinations, and an instinct to appear where the game needed him. But he lacked the physical presence that often fast-tracks teenagers through elite systems, and for a while he was just another talented islander trying to be seen. The call that changed everything, or so it seemed, came when Real Madrid invited the 15-year-old for a trial. For a boy raised in a Barca house, irony aside, this was a chance to prove he belonged among Spain's elite. Fate intervened in the most mundane way: snow. Training sessions at Madrid's complex were postponed or limited, and when he finally did step onto the pitch, the club staff weren't convinced. Later, the youngster would describe it with trademark calm. "I couldn't train with Real Madrid because there was snow on the field. In the end, they told me I wasn't good enough." The setback stung, but it didn't deter him. It clarified him. If Madrid didn't see it, others soon would. Within a year, Las Palmas, the biggest club in the Canaries, invited him into their setup. By the summer of 2019, he had signed a professional contract at just 16, and within weeks he debuted in Spain's rugged second division. That rapid progression, from anonymous prospect to professional teenager, vindicated his belief that technical intelligence could trump raw size. The jump also set the stage for everything that followed, becoming the youngest scorer in Las Palmas history, then drawing the attention of the club he'd watched from his family's restaurant. Those milestones belonged to later chapters, but their spark was lit the day one trial went cold. Rejection didn't define Pedri, response did. The boy from Bahamar, who was too small, learned to turn tight spaces into advantages, and used a snowy false start to propel himself toward Barcelona, Spain, and the game's biggest nights. When Las Palmas signed a wiry 16-year-old from Juventud Laguna in 2018, they weren't taking on a physically imposing athlete. They were betting on vision, touch, and the kind of spatial awareness you can't teach. For Pedri Gonzalez, it was the opportunity Madrid had overlooked, a professional platform in Spain's Segunda Division, where every minute on the pitch was a test against seasoned veterans. Manager Pepe Mel quickly saw what others had missed. Here was a teenager with the calm of a 30-year-old, able to take the ball under pressure and play forward before opponents even set themselves. Mel didn't just integrate him slowly. He built attacking patterns around Pedri's ability to find space between lines. The results came almost immediately. On September 19th, 2019, just weeks after his debut, Pedri scored against Sporting Gijón, becoming the youngest goalscorer in Las Palmas' history at 16 years, 9 months. The Segunda Division can be unforgiving for flair players. The pace is quick, the challenge is hard, and the referee's less likely to protect young talent. But instead of shrinking from the physicality, Pedri adapted by making the ball do the work. His low centre of gravity and knack for releasing passes a split second before contact kept him productive, and crucially injury-free during his breakthrough season. By the winter of 2019, scouts from across Europe were making trips to Gran Canaria. Barcelona's interest crystallised early in 2020. The club was in flux, Lionel Messi's future uncertain, finances tight, and the team's identity eroding under inconsistent managers. Amid that uncertainty, Barca's sporting department saw in Pedri a rare commodity, a player whose style already mirrored the tiki-taka principles of Xavi Hernandez and Andres Iniesta. In September 2019, before he had even played 10 professional matches, Barcelona struck a deal reportedly worth €5 million plus add-ons, a low-risk move for a talent they believed could anchor their midfield for a decade. The agreement allowed Pedri to finish the 2019-20 season at Las Palmas, giving him a full campaign to mature before moving to Catalonia. He ended that year with 36 league appearances, scoring 4 goals and assisting 6, impressive numbers for a 17-year-old, in a league where most players are in their physical prime. More telling than statistics, though, was his consistency. Week after week he influenced matches, whether drifting wide to overload the flanks or slipping into central pockets to dictate tempo. When he finally arrived at the Camp Nou in the summer of 2020, expectations were modest. Ronald Koeman, known for preferring experienced players, didn't promise the newcomer a starting role. But pre-season training changed that calculus. Pedri's quick adaptation to Barca's patterns, his fearlessness in tight spaces, and his understanding of positional play made him impossible to overlook. He was handed a place in the senior squad not as an apprentice, but as a genuine first-team option. Within weeks, he was starting Champions League matches against Juventus, gliding past defenders and threading passes as though he'd been there for years. That seamless leap, from second-tier prodigy to running midfields on Europe's biggest stage, marked one of the most rapid ascents in modern Spanish football. The step up from Segunda to Barca is a chasm for most players. For Pedri, it was a bridge he crossed with barely a wobble. By the close of his first months in Catalonia, it was clear. The €5 million gamble had been a masterstroke. Barcelona hadn't just signed a promising youngster, they had found the heartbeat of their next generation. Pedri's debut season at Barcelona was the stuff of football fairy tales. But behind the fairy tale was a workload that would have tested even the most seasoned professionals. By the end of the 2020-21 campaign, the teenager had played more competitive minutes than any other player in world football that season. 73 matches, over 5,000 minutes, spread across La Liga, Copa del Rey, Champions League, Euro 2020, and the Olympic Games. The season began with him becoming a fixture in Ronald Koeman's side. Week after week he ran Barcelona's midfield alongside Sergio Busquets and Frenkie de Jong, showing no sign of intimidation. Then came Euro 2020, played in 2021 due to the pandemic. Luis Enrique, Spain's coach, trusted Pedri enough to start him in every match. Not only did he play every minute, including extra time in knockout games, but he also covered more ground than any other player in the tournament, earning a place in UEFA's Team of the Tournament and the Young Player of the Tournament award. Instead of a well-earned rest, Pedri then travelled to Tokyo for the Olympic Games, once again becoming the heartbeat of Spain's midfield. He played 6 matches in 16 days, including extra time in the final, which Spain lost to Brazil. By the time he returned to Barcelona, he had logged the kind of schedule that would stretch a 28-year-old veteran, never mind an 18-year-old still developing physically. Medical staff began to sound the alarm. Fatigue, they warned, was an injury risk. But as many observers noted, players rarely volunteer to sit out, especially when national pride is at stake. Former pros argued he needed protecting. Somebody has to look after him, pundit Steve Nicol said, pointing out that a teenager was unlikely to say no to either club or country. The inevitable happened early in the 2021-22 season. A thigh muscle injury sidelined him for several weeks, but each attempted comeback was short-lived. The same injury flared up multiple times, forcing Barcelona to shut him down for a 4-month stretch. It was a brutal reality check. The human body has limits, even for a player whose mind seemed always ready for more. When Pedri finally returned in January 2022, under none other than his predecessor, Xavi Hernandez, he looked refreshed and sharper. Xavi made him central to Barcelona's midfield structure, leaning on his ability to dictate tempo and find vertical passing lanes. Despite missing much of the season, Pedri's impact was transformative. The team climbed the table to finish second in La Liga, and his performances, including a standout display in a 4-0 El Clasico win at the Bernabeu, reminded everyone why he had been overused in the first place. The burnout episode became a cautionary tale for Barcelona and the Spanish national team. Going forward, his minutes would be more carefully managed, with an emphasis on rest and recovery to preserve him for the matches that matter most. Pedri had proven he could handle the pressure of the world stage. Now the challenge was ensuring his body could sustain the brilliance his mind so effortlessly produced. By the start of the 2022-23 season, Pedri González was no longer just a promising teenager. He was the player Barcelona looked to for rhythm, control, and match-winning interventions. Under Xavi Hernandez, the club's identity was returning to its roots. Structured possession, intelligent movement, and midfield dominance. Pedri was central to that vision, embodying the qualities of the legends he grew up idolizing. Xavi recognized that to get the best from Pedri, he needed him fit and fresh. After the injury-plagued 2021-22 campaign, his minutes were managed more carefully. This allowed him to add another dimension to his game, not just dictating tempo from deep, but influencing matches in the final third. By season's end, Pedri had scored 7 goals in 35 appearances across all competitions, the highest tally of his career to that point. Many of those goals were decisive, breaking deadlocks or securing narrow wins. Statistically, Pedri was elite. In La Liga, he posted 91.2% pass accuracy, averaged 2.2 key passes per game, and completed more than 9 progressive passes per match. His dribbling success rate hovered around 1.5 per game, and crucially, he was doing this while maintaining defensive discipline, recovering possession, pressing intelligently, and balancing creativity with security. These numbers weren't empty. They reflected his ability to control the tempo against any opponent, home or away. His link-up with Gavi and Frenkie de Jong became one of Barcelona's greatest strengths. Gavi's energy and aggression complemented Pedri's calm, while de Jong's dribbling from deep gave Pedri more space to operate between the lines. The trio often overwhelmed opponents, keeping the ball for long stretches and forcing defensive errors. The results followed. Barcelona won their first La Liga title since 2019, finishing comfortably ahead of Real Madrid. While Robert Lewandowski's goals were headline-grabbing, inside the club there was no doubt that Pedri's consistency had been just as important. Whenever he was on the pitch, Barca's control was total. When he was absent, especially in the Champions League, the difference was glaring. In Europe, the club's shortcomings were clear. Injuries sidelined Pedri for key Champions League matches, and without him, Barcelona's midfield lacked the same composure and incisiveness. Xavi himself admitted the team's dependency on the young playmaker was both a strength and a problem. They needed him for domestic dominance, but his availability for Europe's biggest nights would determine whether Barca could truly compete with the continent's elite again. By the end of the season, Pedri was seen not only as the engine of Barcelona's revival, but as a symbol of the club's future. His technical excellence, vision, and intelligence had restored faith that Barca's tiki-taka heritage could thrive in the modern game. Yet the lesson of his earlier burnout still lingered. If the club wanted to build a new era around him, they would have to ensure his brilliance was protected, preserved, and given the biggest stages on which to shine. The summer of 2024 marked another turning point in Pedri González's career. Xavi Hernández, the coach who had recentered Barcelona's identity around midfield control, departed. In his place came Hansi Flick, a manager known for high-intensity pressing, vertical transitions and rapid attacking play. For Pedri, it meant adapting once again, shifting from the measured build-up of tiki-taka to a system that demanded quicker decision-making, more forward runs and relentless work without the ball. Rather than resisting the change, Pedri embraced it. Flick moved him into a slightly more advanced role, often positioning him closer to the final third. This allowed Pedri to exploit his vision in more dangerous areas, threading passes into the box, arriving late to finish chances, and linking directly with the front line. In the first half of the 2024-25 campaign, he delivered 4 goals and 6 assists across competitions, already marking his most productive attacking season to date. His passing accuracy remained high at 88.3%, but the distribution was more aggressive, faster, riskier, and often vertical. The tactical shift also brought greater defensive demands. Flick's style required Pedri to press high, recover possession quickly, and transition instantly from defence to attack. He responded with an average of 1.5 ball recoveries per match, showing that he could blend creativity with commitment. Against Sevilla, he was directly involved in 5 of Barcelona's 9 created chances, illustrating how the new role amplified his influence rather than limiting it. Perhaps most importantly in the season just gone, he has seen a significant improvement in his availability. The injury issues that shadowed earlier years have been better managed, allowing him to maintain rhythm and form across multiple competitions. This consistency has reassured both club and fans that he can be a long-term cornerstone without the constant fear of setbacks. In January 2025, Barcelona made their commitment official. Pedri signed a contract extension until 2030, effectively tying his prime years to the club. The deal wasn't just a statement of faith in his abilities, it was an acknowledgement that he is central to Barcelona's long-term vision. In an era where financial pressures often forced difficult decisions, locking down their most valuable midfield asset sent a clear message. Pedri is non-negotiable. At just 22 years old, he has already won a La Liga title, been crowned Golden Boy, and starred for Spain in major tournaments. Yet his greatest challenges still lie ahead. Barcelona's domestic competitiveness is back, but European glory remains elusive. The Champions League will be the stage where Pedri's leadership, adaptability and creativity must shine brightest. No longer the boy from Bajamar too small for Real Madrid, Pedri is now one of the most complete midfielders of his generation, a player equally capable of running a game at walking pace or breaking it open with a single pass. In Flick's high-pressing Barcelona, he has become more than just a controller of play. He is the heartbeat, the link between eras, and the embodiment of the club's future ambitions.